All right, I don't have an intro for this podcast. This
All right,
is
here's the podcast. Hello, I'm Dr. Boom, and I'm going to introduce the very first episode of Tuesday Night's podcast, that is, with your host, SBJ.
That's me.
Hey, and I'm Alan Girding.
I'm Sean McCoy.
Really good give and take there. Sorry, I'm already teasing you, and we're 2 seconds into this. I apologize.
Look at perfect. We've already got a podcast. We can wrap it up now.
Okay, that was Tuesday Night Podcast. I'm Dr. Boom. No, all right.
Is this podcast coming out on Tuesday nights? Is that the thing?
Are we planning? Well, yeah, we're hoping to release them on Tuesday night, right?
Right. But
But
we're
are
not
you
recording.
asking this Tuesday?
I wouldn't think this Tuesday. I think we are not ready for that.
Agreed. We still haven't decided on a graphic yet. Although I think all three of us have seen the iterations. I sent SBJ the assets, graphical assets, Sean. And
To
where
mess
we
around
at?
with.
Yeah, where are you at, SBJ, on that? You have a
I've
favorite?
decided that red looks better than orange.
Okay.
And then the last version I sent you via Twitter, I think it's going to be that pretty close to that, but red.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to send Sean that for approval. But hey, this
I
is
have
your
Twitter.
show, man. What? You approve?
I've got Twitter. I could look this up.
It was through the direct message.
Yeah. He didn't tweet.
I have. Trust me, I could look it up.
He's got contacts, apparently.
So this is a board game podcast.
It's somewhat, yeah, but we're going to talk about everything. I was telling Sean before we got on, it's my goal to make sure that nobody likes me after they listen to the podcast. So we'll talk about all of that stuff I figure we'll just be real. We'll have conversations, but we'll try to stay on topic. And I think that's your job, SBJ, is to try to keep us on topic.
Sure,
Is that
yeah.
Yeah?
And kind
All
of
right.
narrate through segments and keep the show at an appropriate time. We're aiming for these podcasts to be about 30 minutes long, and I think last week we did 40 minutes, which so we already broke the first rule there.
We don't talk about episode 0. Sean wasn't involved.
Oh, okay.
If you can't be good, you should at least be short. It's like a good rule of thumb.
Yep, that's how I got my wife to marry me. So, yeah, I think I'm going to aim for 20 minutes because Sean and I will probably ramble. So if you could rein us in, that would be amazing. But I have an idea for our first segment. You guys ready for the first segment idea?
Okay.
Hold
All
on.
right.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. What you playing? It's time to talk about what we've been playing lately. Boo. We should probably get an actual. In fact, it's going to be edited in right here. Whoa, that was an amazing segue music for that segment.
The most precise edits in this podcast.
It's amazing, right? But hey, what have you guys been playing lately? In fact, Sean, is that you I'm hearing clicking? What you clicking, Sean?
That's not me, man.
What? It's not me. SBJ, you clicking your mouse?
I was not clicking. I actually have a trackpad, so there's no click there.
Yeah.
I mean, Sean was clicking earlier. He could talk
Yeah.
about that.
What were you playing earlier, Sean?
I was playing Hearthstone.
Well, let's not talk about a video game or an online game. Would you even call Hearthstone a video game?
I would say it's a
Yeah.
card game that just can't be created into real life.
And you say video game, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I play it with a computer, so.
All right, we'll branch off into that. Let's make the first game we talk about on the Tuesday night podcast a tabletop game. Yeah.
Like Spyfall?
Did you play Spyfall recently, SBJ?
I did, yeah.
Let's
That's
hear it.
actually kind of the only game I've been playing.
Nice.
Because it's that good, or because your friends refuse to play anything else?
No, it is that good. I think my friends and I were really burnt out of the Resistance.
Sure.
Oh man, I got so much to talk about with that, but keep on going.
And usually like the first two games of the Resistance goes pretty well, and then everyone wants a third, and then that's when like hurt feelings begin.
Oh man, yep,
And then
yeah.
you kind of when you finish a game, there's always like that great like retrospect of talking about what happened.
And are
And
you
with the
usually
Resistance,
talking about how the friendships ended, or are you talking about what happened in the game?
what happened in the game.
All right.
But then the Resistance gets like this uh nature of like, well, it was your fault we lost, or it was like, why did you do this? And then it kind of becomes a blame game afterwards, at least in my group of friends. And there's a lot of hurt feelings. And so when I heard about Spyfall and I picked it up and I taught my play group it, they really really liked it, and it was more, there was a lot more laughter, and it's just a funnier game and more relaxed than the Resistance, even though it kind of is like it was like one spy instead of a group of spies, and it's very stressful for that one person, but the rest of the table kind of really enjoys it. And I think there's a more satisfying win condition for that spy if they are able to win.
I
It
couldn't agree
moves
more.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always set the timer to, I think the rule book says 8 minutes, and I think 8 minutes is a good amount of time for everyone to go through and ask their questions and try to figure it out.
I usually do 1 minute per player because 8 minutes with only fewer players is almost too much for the spy, or too much time for the spy. So it makes it harder for the spy. So I just say 1 minute per player because I like it when the spy wins. Because the biggest complaint anyone ever has is you nailed it. It's too stressful when you're the spy. You're freaking out.
Yeah, I had this great game where I was the spy for the first time, and they were at the school, and they kept like every time somebody would say something, they would kind of say it with an innuendo. They were just like, "Oh, doing your like, I got some papers to grade," or
It was that obvious.
right. And I was like, they're like the whole table was doing this, and I was like, they are making it like there's no way it could be like the college because like it is blatantly obvious. So like, and they were like, I'll see you afterwards after class tonight, and I was just like, no, like this cannot be the school. And so I thought it was the strip club because I like they were saying everything with like somewhat of like a sexual tone, and I was like, it has to be the strip club because they're all laughing and they're all
Oh
like
wow.
on the
Yeah.
same page, and there's no way it's obviously, but it was the school, and I was wrong.
Yeah, it was so obvious. Hidden in plain sight. I love it. Let me ask you, Sean, do you think for the listeners we should give a brief explanation of the games that we're talking about, or should we just assume?
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah,
I
no.
hate that. My least favorite thing about board game journalism right now is everyone is required to explain how to play the game and explain the theme before we get down to like whether they liked it or whether it's any fun. I mean, you guys can feel free to, but I feel like it just takes up so much time. It's like, if you think we're cool and you like the game, like go look up how to play the game. There's a billion people that do that better. Does that make sense?
Totally.
No, I agree. And a lot of the times when people are explaining it over podcasts, you're just like, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sink or swim then, I guess. Yeah, if
The
you don't
best,
know
the
it,
best
check
thing
it
I
out.
think you could just say, like, oh, it's like Resistance.
It's a hidden role
One
game.
Night
Yeah.
Resistance, yeah, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, here are my thoughts on Spyfall, and then Sean, you can totally chime in because you played Spyfall while you were living with me, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Spyfall, first of all, the theme, no. I mean, first of all, let me first clarify. Love the game. I love the game because the only hard time is when you're the spy because it's really stressful. And if you can muscle through those few times that you're the spy, it really brings people together. And you really hammered that home, SBJ, because my big beef with the Resistance, as Sean knows, is there's been so many friendships that have just burned alive because of Resistance. And I think that is because it rewards emotional bullying. If I'm a jerk, it actually is a winning strategy because if I'm getting visually upset, hey man, I'm not the spy, you'll think, well, this isn't worth getting in a fight over, so I'll back off because I don't want it to be more awkward than it's already become. And that has happened so many times where people are like, I was actually the spy. I won that game. And it makes me say, did you though? Did anyone actually win that game? I'm not sure anyone did. So that's why Spyfall's amazing. So the theme, though, I can't hear how a spy would be listening in. And I think there'd be a couple fixes. They could just call it Archer, and Archer, as in if they got that license from the cartoon, just a totally incompetent spy, maybe, or an alien that has no idea where they're at. Like, what? What? I don't understand what this is. I don't know, something. Anyone gonna back me up here, or no? Am I hanging dry between the two of you guys?
It's definitely not like the best theme in the world by any means. I think the main mechanic it gets across is like that resistance mechanic of like, okay, one of you is the traitor and the rest of us are fucking with you. And so like it puts that idea into your head really quickly, but then that's where the theme totally falls off the cliff, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like when you say one of you is the spy, I think everybody instinctively knows like, ooh, one of us has to lie a lot, you know? So it explains that quickly. But yeah, I don't think it's definitely not a thematic game by any means.
And the other thing I want to say about it that isn't groundbreaking at all is the print and play better than the actual published version. Are you playing a print and play SBJ, or are you playing the published version?
I have the published version. I forget where I picked it up, but I picked it up during the time where like it was sold out everywhere. And then I discovered the iPhone web app, or just when you enter the website and everyone enters a code to join. Have you heard about that?
Oh my goodness, no, but you have me drooling.
Okay, so if everyone has a smartphone at the table, all you do is one person goes to the website, and I can't remember what it's called, but then you hit create game and it gives you a 4-digit code, and then you tell everyone to hit join game and they enter your 4-digit code. And then when you hit start game, it will assign everyone with their phones. And the cool thing is, like, once the spy is like assigned, it also shows a whole list of all the locations right below.
Nice. Yes.
And like that's the biggest flaw to Spyfall is like there's I think 30 locations, and if you're the spy for the first time, you can't help but look and try to figure out like, okay, there are 30 locations. I only have like 2 memorized, and everyone else doesn't have to memorize anything. They know exactly where they are.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, because that's why the print and play on the back of the cards is all the locations. So everyone just habitually looks at the back of their card, because I know when I'm a spy, I don't want this to look suspicious. But the idea that it's on your cell phone, people are already buried in their cell phones too much as it is, so it will totally look natural if you're just looking at your phone. I love it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And I like that the game is short. I've had games of Resistance go for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I've had them go longer. Yeah, it can be painful. Hey, Sean, what about you? What have you been playing? Anything?
I've been playing Hearthstone. No, in Portland, I got to go to a board game night with Caitlin and Scott, a couple of friends of ours, and we had a really cool night where we played Fake Artist Goes to New York, Monikers, and what was the third game we played? I have it written down here. But everything really blended into each other. It was a really chill night. Like everybody was very like good sports. Everybody was there to have fun. I don't know. And Codenames. Yeah. So we started off with Codenames, and then we played Fake Artist Goes to New York, and then we moved into Monikers, and it had this almost like those games belong together. Like you should have bought them in a pack because they just moved very seamlessly from one into the other. But 3 super great party games that I really totally enjoyed.
Have you played Monikers yet, SBJ?
Yeah, I backed the Kickstarter.
Nice.
Super awesome. Have you played the cooperative version where it's everyone together?
No.
Oh, wow. Well, let me tell you, I'm really biased, but I love it. I think everyone should own Monikers and try at least the cooperative version.
Is that
It's
just
awesome.
another rule set in the instruction booklet?
Yeah, if you look in the back of the instruction booklet, it says How to Play Cooperatively by Alan Girding. What? So, yeah, we play cooperatively. It's by our friends, Alex Haig and Justin. And it's, even if I didn't know those guys, and they're terrific guys, the game is the single most played game of all time. And that's coming from the creator of Two Rooms and a Boom. So at my Tuesday night gatherings, we called it, but it's when every Tuesday night I have a whole bunch of people and they play games, hence the name of our company. the most requested game by far is Monikers. As soon as there's a lull that's last 30 seconds where no one's saying anything, Monikers. All right, let's do Monikers. Right, and that's the way it goes. But surprisingly, we did not play Monikers this Tuesday. What was the middle game that you said? There's an artist in New York.
Fake artist goes to New York.
I've never even heard of it. Can you give it?
It's an Oink game. So it's this Japanese game. Gorgeous, tiny little box that just fits the components exactly. But it's essentially Spyfall mixed with Pictionary. We all get a pen, and we all know what word we're trying to draw, and one of us doesn't. One of us is the fake artist. So we pass this pad around, and we each have a colored marker, and we each get to make one line, one continuous line. So as long as you don't pick up your pen. And at the end of the round, we all get to make two lines, like we all get two turns. The fake artist, if they guess what the drawing is, they win. So if they guess, oh, that's obviously a tree. But if we all get to vote, and if we all vote for who the fake artist is, like if it's obvious who the fake artist is, we win, and they get a chance to guess there.
You had me at Pictionary meets Spyfall.
Spyfall, super fun, and it's just like really light, inoffensive. It's one of these minimal Japanese type games, and it's funny because four of you are trying to draw a car, and one of you is trying to look like you're drawing whatever it is everybody else is drawing, but then again, like, people are bad artists. And so like, people are like, we were drawing a car. What were you drawing? You're like, I was drawing a car, but
I'm really bad.
And at the end of the game, it looks like you just have a stack of drawings drawn by like a 5-year-old, because they're all over the place and there's no cohesion. And there's obviously one person who has no clue what they're doing. So
I almost imagine this is the first game that punishes you for having good art skill. Like, I imagine you'd have to be horrible. You're like, I was drawing a car. Sean, we know you know how to draw a car. You're an artist.
Oh, yeah.
So you're the artist that's lost in New York?
Well, since you only get to make one line, it's not like your art skills can be great. And you also want to match it up with everyone else. And it's funny because there's this mentality you have where you want your line to help. So if somebody drew circles somewhere and they don't make sense to you.
Oh, wait, this is all on the same piece of paper?
It's all on the same piece of paper, yeah. So you're trying to make their lines make sense so that you show what's going on, It's pretty awesome. Super, super great game. It's tiny. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's like a little bit thicker than a deck of cards. I mean, it's thicker than that, but it's a small box. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. You ready for my games? You guys, you can say no, like, no, we don't want you to talk. That's fine. That was kind of a lose-lose situation. That was dumb. Here are my games. I played Codenames, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I played some Splendor, and I played Loop and Chewy. You guys play Loop and Chewy yet?
No, I've been staying away from the whole, Star Wars craze recently.
Well, you do realize it's just a re-theme of Loop and Louie, right?
Totally.
And you've played Loop and Louie before, yeah?
No, I've been staying away from the whole Louis-themed games recently.
What?
No,
Louis
I'm kidding.
I've
never
there's
played.
So many
Yeah.
good Louis, like Louis Braille and
Louis
Louis. Who's the artist? Pasteur, or whatever. So
Louis.
yeah, and yeah, Louis C.K. Anyway, SBJ, help me out here. You've totally played Loop and Louie or Loop and Chewy at least, yeah?
0, no.
What? All right, that's getting old quick in this podcast. So you guys know what it's about, yeah?
You're like Chewbacca, and you're drunk, and so you're just spinning around in circles.
Yeah, kind of. So you're actually, I think, bad guys because you have stormtroopers. Let's just talk about the original Loop and Louie. Crazy ass flyer. Loop and Louie's at it again. He's drunk and flying all over the place. And you've got to protect your chicken coop because he keeps on crashing in your chickens, murdering them. So it's an agility game, and it's a kid's game that is incredibly highly addictive. Supposedly, someone actually built a gigantic Looping Louie that it was attached to a car motor. That was ridiculous. But the idea is he spins around, actually spins around, and you have your station. So all four of you in Looping Louie have your little station. You have 3 chickens, and if he crashes into your chickens, you lose one. And so you have to hit this little trampoline to catapult, teeter-totter. Teeter-totter is the best explanation. You hit one button and the other end goes up and it bumps the bottom of his plane and sends him back up in the air and hopefully into your opponents. And the last person with their chickens is still there. So Loop and Chewie is the same thing, except it's 3-player. And instead of Loop and Louie, it's Chewie and the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. Yeah. So we were playing that. And then we played some code names. And the interesting thing is, man, do I love code names.
Yeah.
Until I realized it was starting to hurt friendships, just like SBJ talked about resistance. Because afterwards, people were like, why did you do this? And why did you do that? And apparently there's rules that some of us didn't know and some of us don't agree with that kind of split the group too. For instance, if you read the rules closely, you can challenge someone if they give you a clue that you don't think applies. Kind of like calling your pockets in billiards, like an 8-ball, like corner pocket, 9-ball, and you hit it. Apparently, someone can say, I challenge you. What the hell does engine have to do with moon? And it just sets up this item of contention where people can say, well, obviously I meant the moon lander. You can just make it up. So it's just they have an actual rule in the book that makes it so you can argue with each other. And then they're really specific about what you're allowed to say and what you're not supposed to say in the rule book. I totally get you shouldn't say a word that's on the board. I can't just say moon, 1, and they flip over moon. But you're also not allowed to say like legs 8 if there's a spider. And I understand why they do this. They do this so that we can't come up with some devious plan ahead of time. Like, hey, if I say a word that starts with A, I mean the first row. If I say a word that starts with B, I mean the second row. And the number is the place in there anyway. And the number of letters is how many words. You could come up with some generic system.
Professional codename players.
Exactly. And the rule of thumb is don't play with those people. Why would you just, and Sean and I have talked about this in our publishing because people have said, oh, you don't want to do that because people can cheat. For instance, in Two Rooms and a Boom, you could have the president and the doctor lie and say, oh, we totally card shared, but they didn't. And people said, what are you going to do about that? How do you prevent people from lying? And my answer is always the same. How do you prevent someone from looking over the screen in Battleship? You don't do that. But I can see how, I don't know. It's a hot button. Go for it.
I think this cuts both ways. I know the situation a little bit more personally.
Mhm.
But like, for instance, the contention and the challenging, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But if you play with people who challenge and they're dicks, like that's an around the table problem. You know what I mean? Like I've played Scrabble a billion times where people have been like, I don't know about that, and it's been fine. And obviously in Scrabble you can look up the word. But I would add the caveat, like a challenge mechanic doesn't necessarily need to be contentious. You know what I mean? That's more about the personalities involved. To me, it sounds like.
So I'm a little confused on the rules. So let's say the one your blue team and a word was blue, and I say, and the word was moon, and I say horse, and for whatever reason my team points at moon. That is when they would challenge.
Yeah,
they'd say, what does horse have to do with moon? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They could challenge. Yeah, that's in the rule book.
And then what? Like, okay, so obviously the word is right in the retrospective, in the aspect of it's being blue, but then what do? Do you remove the word? Does it go away? Do they not get the point? Because they know that's your word then at that point.
Sure.
That's a really good question, and I guess I should have read the rule book further instead of burning it right there when I read that rule. I didn't even let it finish. Like, have you read the rule for the timer? The timer rule? Do you know the timer rule on this? Pop quiz.
When I was demoing, they said you can just flip a timer over if people are taking too long, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, give somebody like a minute to think of a word to say, and then give people a minute to answer, like, or however long the timer was. I was like, that makes sense. Was there more of a rule to that?
No, that's it. And here's my man. I'm coming off so negative. Episode 1, man. I guess I'm going to be that guy. So in designing games, the one thing I like to ask myself is this rule making it more fun or less fun? And the other rule is, hey, if something can happen within your rules, it will happen. For instance, if there's some really rare case that would break the game, you can't just publish the game and be like, yeah, there may be some strange circumstances that happen sometime that break the game. That will happen. So with that being said, let's think about that. Instead of using the timer or not using the timer, anyone at any time could say, geez, Meredith, hurry up already, and slam down the timer. That right there kind of creates contention too, because then maybe Meredith will think, well, then you have this. This all leads to people probably increasing hostility. It should just be agreed upon beforehand, like, hey, are we going to use the timer or are we not going to use the timer? I can see a group saying, let's just use the timer. If we think someone's going over a minute or two, let's not make it really official. Just maybe a visual reference, but we're not going to go ahead and really, rule Nazi this thing. But I think all this that we're talking about right now just boils down into one simple fact, that I think any game is only as good as the players with whom you play. Because you don't want to be playing with people that have poor sportsmanship. You want to be playing with friends and people that are lighthearted and they're there for fun. Does that sound right? At least that's in my mind.
No, that
Sure, yeah.
totally makes sense. Like I've set up like the Game of Thrones game before, and I was so excited for it, and it was like it was coming off my high of just watching like the first 4 seasons, and I set it up and I was like so excited, and the first like 2 turns were great, and then all of a sudden one person realized that they were kind of getting screwed on both sides and like kind of just gave up playing, and it was like, oh,
That's rough, yeah.
like we just spent like 45 minutes like explaining the rules in the first 2 turns, and now you're kind of done, and all right, I guess we're going to end this game early.
I saw a thing, we were playing that Fake Artist Goes to New York, and one person felt like they had been found out, but they hadn't, really. And so they just drew like a random squiggly line. They were just like, oh, I don't know. And we were all like, oh, hey, whoa, we were still having fun. And they weren't mad at all. They just, kind of felt like they didn't know what to do. And it was funny because Scott, who Alan, like was so gracious.
I didn't realize you played with Scott that first night too. So it was you, Caitlin,
No,
and
this
Scott?
was this is Sunday night, the night you left.
Oh, this is when I left.
Yeah.
God, I'm so jealous. I'm so jelly.
And so he was just like, okay, cool. But look, no doing that anymore. No, just totally throwing in the towel, because that's not fun for the rest of us. And I thought it was pretty cool, like, that he could address, she wasn't being a poor sport by any means, but he just nipped it in the bud. You know what I mean? He was like, hey, don't do that. That's not super fun. But he was graceful.
Kind of like this podcast. It's like it's organic in that we're starting off just loosey goosey, and then as a group we establish a dynamic and house rules, and then it's gonna be super tight. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it is kind of like that.
I was like, were you watching the time? Do you see that it's approaching 30 minutes, and that's why you said that?
I just see it's approaching 30 minutes. Yeah. In fact, we should probably go into the next segment. You guys ready for the next segment?
Sure. Is it the conclusion?
It probably, yeah, it should be our last segment. Here we go. This segment I like to call Get to Know Each Other. Because here's the truth of the matter. Wait, cue in the segment music. That was awesome. Good job once again.
I didn't like that one as much as the first one.
It definitely wasn't as good as What You Playing, if that's what we call the first segment. But I guess there's room for improvement, but it was good. It was good.
Always room for improvement.
Yeah. All right. So the truth of the matter is, Sean and I know each other really well. In fact, I probably have counted the amount of pubes he has at some point. So we know each other too well.
Two.
Two. It was really easy, so don't be impressed. But SBJ, we don't know you that much at all. So we figure this is a good time for all of us to get to know each other. So we could do this in question format where,
Hold on. Guilty confession. So SBJ, you'd been playing Two Rooms and a Boom at Gen Con for a couple years in a row?
Yeah. Oh, what was that? Our third year this past Gen Con?
Mm-hmm.
And this year we were on that podcast that Donald did and Board with Life did, and I felt like I got to know you. And then throughout it, you revealed like, oh, and I've been playing Two Rooms and a Boom for the past 3 years, and I had no idea. And I was like, what? How have you been playing this for 3 years and I haven't met you before? Maybe I have met you before and I've forgotten. Just that guilty con moment where it's like, because I have friends that I met 3 years ago at Gen Con that I'm really close to now. And so it's like, I don't know. So I'm glad to be getting to know you, but I felt super guilty that you come and play the game and I hadn't,
I
like,
followed you, Steve. I mean, sorry, SBJ. So
uh,
yeah.
yeah, I don't really know how that happens. I usually when I go to like Gen Con or other expos, I try not to network, as weird as that
right.
sounds.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But like I'm with a bunch of friends and my girlfriend, so at the time it's like, oh, I could stay and talk to like Sean and Alan, and that would be really cool because I've been seeing them every year. But then it's like, well, what are they going to do? Because I'm kind of like the direction of the group,
Hmm.
and so then I always kind of feel bad where it's like, oh, you guys should go do something, and they're like, well, we didn't know what to do. What do you want to do? And I was like, you're all adults, go do something.
Yeah, just to be clear for the listeners, anytime SBJ would walk up, every year your posse has seemed to have grown. Like I think like the first year when we were just demoing it, and I think you were even playing when we had tokens instead of leaders. Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
yep.
Like tokens? Yeah, you're still playing. I think it was just like you and two other people, or at least
Hmm.
it seemed. And then when we had our acts together and we're actually doing official two rooms and a boom events, you came with a handful of people. And then this year it seemed like a whole bunch of people. Now I don't know if they knew you, if they were with you, but yeah, it seemed like you were the leader guy. Not to offend any of them. Hopefully they don't feel like Robin to Batman or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, a lot of my friends now have like I've introduced so many people to Gen Con that they or not to Gen Con to board games that it was like a lot of them like live in Michigan or Washington DC or Texas or something, and so that's like our way to see each other.
Mm.
So I never want to be like, all right, like thanks for hanging out, but like for the next 2 hours, like see ya.
No,
uh,
I totally get that, man. And I feel like I have the least fun at a show when I'm the most worried about networking. Like when I'm more concerned with like meeting people than I am with like, well, I'm just gonna do what I want to do and I'll meet the people that I happen to meet. But I've had, my heart broken the most when it's like, man, I gotta meet this person or I gotta talk to this person or I gotta share this idea with so and so. It just gets, it gets dangerous.
Yeah, and how we started talking a lot that last Gen Con, and it was mostly because I saw Donald, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, like I was talking to Donald earlier, and I wasn't like looking for him. It was just like, oh, he's here. Maybe I should just say something, and that's when all three of us really started talking.
And that was like organic, right? And like here we are. I don't know. I definitely like
just
I
so
see
our
what
listeners know, when we mention Donald, we mean Donald Schultz of Bored with Life, a YouTube show that's hilarious and entertaining, actually has some drama and definitely story.
That's well said.
All right, so let's tighten this up so we can wrap this up. How about we do it this way? One question for someone each, right? So obviously, Sean and I have the advantage because we there's two of us and one of you, Steve. I'm SBJ. Damn it! I just want to call you Super Blow J, and I think that's not appropriate. So I'm just gonna go with Steve, and I call you that because I know your severe love of bubblegum. That's one thing I know.
What?
So that's why.
Okay, so why bubblegum?
Yeah, why do you like bubblegum so much? Why Super Blow
No,
J?
like gum is spelled with a G, not a J.
No, Super Blow J. He's really good with bubblegum tricks. That's why SBJ.
I feel like you're causing more cloudiness with the audience.
Oh, okay. I'm making this up. No, when I hear SBJ, it's fun. I had a cat named BJ, and I didn't realize at the time as a kid because people would come over like, "Hey, what's your cat's name?" I'm like, BJ, and the adults would be like, "Oh, okay." And there's definitely adults I know as BJ, but my parents are hypersexual, and I didn't realize it until later on because the other cat that was with BJ was Cunnilingus, and so it was one of these things that that's Cunny. We just call him Cunny. It's Cunny. Ah. So it wasn't until I was older that I'm like, oh, you didn't mean like Bobby Robert Jr. or anything like that. So they meant the other thing. So I hear SBJ and I assume it must stand for super. But for some reason I met you as Steve. I don't know how I met you as Steve. Maybe just from looking at your badge.
Yeah,
But
probably.
probably. All right. So let's clamp down on this. Let's get some organized, guys. We're not going to be derailed every time. So here we go. One question each. SBJ, ask us a question and we'll answer it with the utmost honesty.
The utmost honesty. Okay, let's try to keep it board game related since it's the first episode. At least that's my mentality.
All right. This is
Alan,
getting to know each other. Here we go.
Alan, what is your all-time favorite board game?
The first thing that comes to my mind is Plato 3000. It's most people haven't heard of it. It was by Cambridge Games, and it's 2-player, plays 2 to 4 player, but you need another deck to play 3 or 4 player. Oh man. But it's basically, the best way to explain it, it's gin rummy with abilities. And I love gin rummy, and I love abilities. So you put them together, and it makes this really tight, awesome game that is totally out of print. So that doesn't do anyone any good. In fact, if you have a copy, it's probably valuable. So yeah, I would say Plato 3000. Yeah. Now you know so much about me. All right, Sean, you want to ask SBJ a question?
Yeah, man. What was your worst board gaming experience?
He's going to say this. He's going to say right now.
There's so many. I'm trying to think of I have like a lot of games on my shelf that like, have you ever played a game and then like the experience was so bad that you never want to play that game again?
Sure.
I've played games that are broken, that you can't actually play, that are published. And I've gone on BGG and everyone's like, yep, game's broken, can't play it. How did this get published? Kickstarter. That's how.
I want to say
yeah,
probably.
absolutely.
Oh man, I can't. Putting me on the spot. I've had some pretty bad games of Betrayal, House on the Hill.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like friendships lost because of that?
It's not so much that. It's so I'm the guy in the group that reads all the rules and explains all the rules.
Oh, that guy.
And I kind of like, it's kind of like, oh, I enjoy doing it. It's really cool, but then like, don't get mad at me if you weren't paying attention, kind of thing.
Oh, totally. I think any one of us that have ever taught a rule before have felt that. So you'll get nothing but empathy from me.
My biggest pet peeve with reading, like being the rule teacher, is like if a scenario hasn't come up, it's like, hey guys, I read these rules once. I'm teaching you for the first time. I'm sorry that we never came across this before. We looked it up, and I know you would have done your turn differently if you had known that, but we just didn't know it. Let's just roll with it.
But the weird thing about Betrayal is there's a lot of, I play with a lot of people who aren't like, would never ever read a real rule book or ever play these games if it wasn't for like me and my girlfriend and I who are very into board games. But it's just like when you're playing Betrayal and somebody turns out to be the betrayer, it's the whole, like I cannot not play that game without thinking like this game is going to go really bad if person A is the betrayer, because I know that they're the weakest at reading rules, and you can't like read their rules for them because it spoils the game.
Right.
Right.
So that game's kind of frustrating in that aspect, and that happens all the time. It's just like, okay, well, we get like a 4 out of 5 chance that this person won't be the, oh, never mind, they are there. Okay, well, good
let's
luck.
just flip over the table now. Let's just take a dump on the table right now and just end it, because it will have the same outcome.
Yep. Like, good luck. There's 40 scenarios. I only know of like 10 of them, and I doubt that you have any of the 10 that I understand.
Wow.
That's awesome.
All right, one last question. Sean, this one's for Sean, from me. Sean, I heard that they found it. Is that true?
Yeah, they found her body in the woods the other day, yeah.
I mean, we probably shouldn't be talking about this on a podcast, but anything ever happened of it so far?
Well, they called my mom to get her dental records, and my mom had to get them from my uncle, but the only way they could identify her was because of her bottom teeth. She had this weird, like...
Oh, did your mom cue in onto this, or was it just, like, so did you know that they knew because of the phone call to your mom, or did you hear it from other source?
No, I was sort of just around, like my dad mentioned, like, oh, your mom's digging through dental records, and, they don't really seem to know what's going on, and...
And so you just kind of looked over her shoulder and saw, those are her dental records?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Oh my. All right, so, hey, that's episode 1 of Tuesday Night Podcasts. Very good. Yeah.
Alan, where can the listeners find you if you want to be found?
If I want to be found, I'm all over the place. I'm on Facebook as Alan Girding, or I'm on Twitter.
He will add anyone that adds him on Facebook.
That is actually true. If you friend request me, I will add you. So, boom.
It's his
Or
Facebook. It's crazy.
Yeah, or if you want to find me, sorry, that's my dog shaking. Or if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Alan Girding, and that's spelled the English way, ALANGER, ding. Ding spelled DING for those of you. Yeah. Cool. SBJ, how do they find you?
They can find me on Twitter. It is at Dragging a Lake, DRAGGINGALAKE.
What is that a reference to, by the way?
It's
Oh,
the
man.
same thing we've been talking about, Sean.
It all comes full circle now.
It's full
Sure.
circle, right? Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't joke about murder on a podcast. It's probably a trigger for some people like, oh, those guys think they're so funny joking about murder. Because we're joking about it.
You're just trying to be as popular as Serial was.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's exactly it. Cool. But ideally, you can just find us on Tuesday Night Games, right?
Sure. Yeah.
TuesdayNightGames.com or our Tuesday Night Game Facebook or our Tuesday Night Game Twitter, which I believe we're going to give you some control over, SBJ, so you can have creative control. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Sean, where can they find you?
At Sean McCoy, SEANMCCOY.
Sweet.
Or you can email contact@tuesdaynightgames.com about any complaints you have, and I'll get those too.
Cool. We didn't even get to talk about XOXO Fest. So much time goes by so quickly. Man. All right.
All right.
What should our sign-off be?
I've been thinking about this all week. I haven't thought of a good one.
And the podcast is over.
I'm Alan Girding.
I'm SBJ.
Oh, sorry. I thought by saying and the podcast was over, we'd be done. I am Sean McCoy.
And the podcast is...
Over.